the forestay was hanging on the little U-bolt up on the top of the mast by just a hair, was just caught by the tension of metal on metal with no pin through it. And as soon as that mast got lifted by the crane, the whole forestay just slumped right down. It was really close.
In 59 North news, it's been an extremely busy week. We've been adding trips to the calendars. We've been planning 2026. I decided to race Spica in Gotland Runt this year. We're doing that. So it's always happens that when I get home or when Mia gets home from a long stint on the boat, there's always like a level of excitement and stuff that piles up because neither of us have been in the office together for a while. So it's been a really fun week here. A couple things to talk about. We are solidifying the plan for the boat show in the fall. So that's an Apple Sailboat Show coming up in October this year. We are partnering with Brady and Alex from the Cruisers Academy. Brady and Alex, of course, sailed with us to Svalbard in 2018 on Eastbjorn. And we're going to be doing some joint events with them at Boat Show. It's not on the website yet, but it will be very soon. So check back if you want to come to an event. I will say we're planning a sort of half-day educational-based seamanship session with them. But instead of doing it, in the past we've done these that have been relatively expensive and for a smaller group, we are keeping it cheap. It's going to be less than $100, and you'll get a ticket to the boat show with that. We're trying to get as many people as we can to give to meet and to share some of this educational information, which I think is important to get out to as many people as possible. So that's coming. There'll be kind of a get together in the evening. All that stuff will be on the website at 59-north.com/boat show within a week after you listen to this. If you listen to this when it comes out. We've also got some bunks left this year in 2024, but not that many. So go to 59-north.com/bunks. In particular, you can still cross the Bay of Biscay on Falcon in the fall. And we added a sail training trip on Eastbjorn in Norway, also in the fall. Those and a few other bunks here and there are available on that /bunks website. And last but not least, we've had such a huge response to the Pacific calendar next year that we're doing it again in 2026. So we're basically repeating the same loop in the Pacific in 2026 as we did in 2025, and those passages will be online and open for booking very shortly. All right, that was a mouthful. I'm going to save my breath for the rest of this episode. Here you go, and until next week, hold fast. On the Wind is presented by my own Harbor Burn Cannon Company. Brought to you by 4 of the founders of 59 North Sailing. Harbor Burn was born by an idea of a group of my friends and I who wanted to add some fun and figured if you own a boat, you need to have a cannon. Our origin goes back almost 20 years when one of our founders and friends, Tom Harrington, bought his first black powder signal cannon to mount on the bow of his Erickson 35 Jubilee. There it sat for many thousands of miles aboard the boat, celebrating sunsets and making people smile up and down the East Coast from Maine to the Bahamas. To make a long story short, Jubilee sank at the dock in Florida during Hurricane Matthew in 2016. Tom was able to salvage the cannon, where it now resides on the bow of their Erickson 38 Compass, and we decided to create a replica of Tom's original black powder cannon. So today, you can buy the Harrington Mark I at harborburn.com. We've got one on Falcon. August has one for Eastbjorn, and Emma, co-host of the podcast, has one for her boat, Seabird, up in Maine. And they are fantastic fun. So if you own a boat, you need a cannon. If you need a cannon, go to harborburn.com to pick up yours there. They are hand-stamped and custom-finished at Lee and Tom's Garage in Frederick, Maryland, and in Virginia, respectively, and shipped out to you with everything you need except for the black powder to fire off your cannon on your boat. Head on over to harborburn.com and see what all the fuss is about. On the Wind is supported by Forbes Horton Yachts. Forbes, one of the longest sponsors of the show, is back again. Huge thanks to them for sponsoring the show. If you need to buy a boat or you need to sell your boat, look no further than Forbes and his wife Jamie, who run a wonderful brokerage out of Annapolis, Maryland. If you're looking at a boat under another broker, Forbes can act as your buyer's broker, and I highly recommend doing that because there is no bias involved. Forbes helped us buy Eastbjorn. Forbes has been involved in all the boats I've bought or sold over the years, whether indirectly or directly as the listing or selling broker. And he's just a fun guy. He's also a sailor himself. They sailed to the Caribbean. Forbes has been on the podcast to tell this story. In fact, Forbes and Jamie sailed to the Caribbean on a refit Tartan 34 Classic. and knows what it's like to be a sailor and to do the real thing. Forbes continues to be a boater, has kids growing up on the Chesapeake, and you can't find a more honest person. You know, the boat broker scene is not necessarily known for its honesty. Forbes is one of the good guys and an honest broker. If you want to see what he's listing currently or get in touch with him, go to ForbesYachts.com. That's FORBES, ForbesYachts.com. We're hopefully going to see Forbes in Annapolis at our seminar coming up, our workshop on offshore sailing in April this year. So if you want to meet him there in person, go to 59-north.com/events and come join us for our Offshore Essentials workshop in Annapolis, and Forbes will be there. Again, go to Forbes Yachts, FORBES, ForbesYachts.com. Ahoy, shipmates. Welcome back to another episode of On the Wind. It's April 2nd in Sweden. It's snowing and blowing a gale outside. Yeah, great place to live. It's not one of those motivating days to be outside. We had a tease of spring over the Easter weekend, and it is right back to winter here. But there you go. This is a cool episode. I wanted to give some context to this one. I always take my podcast recording stuff with me when I go on Falcon or travel anywhere, because you never know who you're going to meet. And this podcast has always been a mix of really sort of famous, legendary sailors that everybody knows that I'm really inspired to talk to, and those are episodes that I plan, and people I meet out cruising. And this is an example of people I meet out cruising. I'd crossed the Atlantic on Falcon. We went from Cape Verde to Barbados. While we were at sea, a message came through to 59 North's Instagram. These Australian guys who were fans of ours and had seen us in Cape Verde but didn't have time to talk. They left ahead of us. We passed them at some point, unbeknownst to either of us, and we reunited in Barbados. And these guys just seemed cool. Like, they were in their 20s, like very, 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 I think we even joked about this in the episode, very stereotypical Australian, like, surf guys, like long blonde hair, super tan, just out spearfishing and surfing and doing stuff every day. And we went over and checked out their boat. Me and Mano, who was my first mate on this trip, they came over to check out Falcon, and we kind of saw each other a bunch in Barbados, and then I invited them over to do the podcast. And these are the episodes that, you know, I knew literally nothing about these guys. I just met them. And man, is their story cool. And just kind of like we spend so much time talking about safety and seamanship and all this sort of like serious stuff. And talking to these guys was like, yeah, we're just out here having fun. And they admit to some of their shortcomings as sailors. There's a really sketchy story of them almost losing the rig in the Mediterranean. But they also, I sort of sometimes tend to disregard folks that kind of just go out and figure it out on their own, because I think there is some responsibility in learning a little bit before you just wing it. And both Henry and Bayley, who I'm interviewing in this episode, they worked professionally on ships in the Australia's oil industry. So they knew a lot about seamanship and had spent like a lot of their teenage years at sea. And I think that was really valuable experience. We touched on that a little bit in this interview. But the overall sort of takeaway from this episode was, man, it's so inspiring to meet young people just doing it, saving their money, working hard, and doing it. And I love it. I hope it inspires other people out there listening to just get out there and freaking do it. So this was a really fun one, and I hope you enjoy it as much as I enjoyed talking to them. You're listening to On the Wind, my podcast about offshore sailing. I'm your host, Andy Schell. Henry Mickle and Bayley Richardson are self-described mates from the land down under, cruising around the world in an old Beneteau. These two 20-something friends made a pact, worked their asses off, saved their money, bought a boat, and are living the dream, figuring it out as they go, but with knowledge and experience earned from working professionally offshore in Australia's oil industry. I spoke to them on board Falcon on anchor in Barbados about their wild highs and scary lows of their adventures so far in their mission to sail Revelry home to Australia. All right, guys, we're rolling. We're just gonna see how this goes. This is cool. I usually know something about the people I'm interviewing. I met you guys the other day here in Barbados, and I know nothing about you other than the few stories we've heard already. So, Henry, I think this was your project, this idea, right?
Yeah.
So give me just a real quick elevator pitch. Who are you? Where are you going?
So myself and Bailey, we're two young fellas from Western Australia.
How old are you?
24.
All right, cool. Are you 24 also, Bailey?
Yeah.
Bailey's also 24, yeah. So we started this when I was 23 last May, and I've basically just been hearing stories of all the old dogs at sea from my work offshore, and they've all just got the craziest stories sailing through all the Pacific and stuff, and so I decided that I wanted to go and do it for myself and get the boat in Greece. And then from Greece, we've sailed through to Turkey. We had to stay in Greece for maybe like 2 or 3 months because I had my passport stolen the first day of the trip.
Okay, that's one story we'll come back to.
Ridiculous. And yeah, then we moved on to Turkey, and then a few months in Turkey, and then Turkey through to Sicily, where we sailed through a Medicane accidentally. And then from Sicily, we got the rig done, and then through the Balearics, Spain, Gibraltar, Canaries to Cape Verde to Barbados.
Hell yeah, man. I'm the reason I want to talk to you is I just, most of the people I have on here, I just like that you guys are just doing it. Like, I want to inspire other young people like yourselves that you don't have to, it doesn't have to be overly complicated to do this type of long distance sailing. So I think it's super cool, and I want to dive into some of that stuff. You mentioned you work offshore. What do you do in real life?
So normally offshore is probably maybe like 3 months or 4 months of the year for us.
And what does that mean?
It's oil and gas.
Okay.
So we're delivering supplies and stuff like that to rigs and mapping the ocean floor. So
is this in Australia?
Survey. Yeah, in Australia, all around Australia as well, not just one specific spot. We've got boats in Tassie, Exmouth, and then they'll move the whole way around. And then Bailey does a similar thing.
Yeah, what do you do in real life, Bailey?
Yeah, for the last 3 months preparing to leave on this trip, I was also working offshore just off of the Pilbara. But before that, I've been doing some commercial fishing and also some farm work way inland. So a good balance of life at sea and on the land, turned to a year at sea with Henry on Revelry.
So, where did this idea come from? One of the themes of the podcast is so two kind of things I want to drill down on. Like, what inspired you guys to this in the first place? Was there a moment? And then also, a lot of people get inspired and fewer people act on that inspiration. So, what inspired you, and what was the impetus for you to be like, yes, we're doing this?
Yeah, I didn't have such a kind of clear water moment that led to me wanting to jump on board and join Henry on this, as such as I just love adventure, and Henry proposed such a crazy idea. I thought it would be mad to let the opportunity pass, and was able to put everything we had into it. A couple of years of work, and the confidence from working at sea and having time at sea definitely helped boost us into being able to make this possible.
How? What do you mean specifically? How did you get confidence working at sea? Give me an example.
Well, sleeping on a boat, living on a boat is no normal task for someone who hasn't experienced it before. It's something new in the sense that it's always changing. Whenever you're on a boat, you have to expect problems before they happen, and that's probably one of the most important things sailing offshore that we've learned. With our preparations more in depth than the actual sailing itself, and I think they're skills that I've learned from working on boats before. 100%. And knowing the ropes, knowing how to tie knots, understanding weather patterns and winds, and seeing what kind of swell can happen out in the ocean has led us to know what we're in for, in a sense.
I mean, that's really cool. And I guess it's not like, maybe I'm wrong, but it doesn't sound like you guys worked offshore specifically to gain experience and skills for doing this. It was kind of a happy accident.
Yeah, not at all. So the offshore thing happened for me when I was...
Talk closer to Mike.
Maybe
there you go.
19. So I was pretty young when I got into it. And
wait, you were 9 or 10 working offshore?
No, 19.
Oh, 19. I was okay, Jesus.
That's my Australian accent.
Yeah. By the way, you guys are I have to just to say, you guys are cartoon characters of Australians. Like the way you look, the way you sound. Mano and I were joking about the other day. So you guys are like right out of a comic book. It's fantastic. I love it.
We get that all the time. We put it on for people as well.
Yeah, I'm sure.
All when we're traveling through Europe, all the different people we'd meet would just put on the Aussie accents and whip out all the slang, confuse the hell out of them.
We'd get called out in the street all the time. Oh, you boys must be surfers, and have a yarn with someone, and then they'd carry on and guess we're Australian straight away.
That's hilarious. Well, yeah, it works. Anyway, so you got into offshore when you were 19. Was that like how?
I was working on fishing charters. Then I worked for Deepore, which is the like conservation and stuff like that through all the marine parks and that sort of thing, and then inland terrestrial as well. And then that sort of led to me going offshore after maybe a year more of chartering, and we were doing a lot of fishing and stuff, and I started feeling a bit bad for all the fish. So it was, like you're just working for all the tourists, fishing, killing the fish, filleting for them, sort of repetitive sort of stuff. And obviously the offshore thing comes with a lot of money, like a really good wage. So that's basically how we could afford to come and do this trip.
But where did the inspiration come from?
The inspiration for this trip,
for sailing in general, like did you grow up sailing?
Nah. So we've been sailing for 9 months.
No shit, really?
Yeah. So that bar one other boat, as in Revelry, is the only boat that I've ever sailed on.
Wow.
I've done maybe 3 laps of the local bay back home in
where
are
you from specifically in Australia?
A town called Leschenault. The closest city is Bunbury, which is 2 hours south of Perth on Western Australia.
West Coast, yeah.
Yeah. So I did a few laps, and I sort of knew I'd love it, and that was leading up to this trip. So it was maybe 2 months before I got the boat, and then the inspiration for this trip for me sort of came from Elwy Mangles, this great Australian explorer. He was around in the 70s, and he was, this dude just like us. No shirts on most of the time, short, stubby pants, and he'd just travel all through the world. It's called World Safaris, was his big film, and he travelled through the
Pacific. Like a documentary?
Yeah, doco. You should watch it. It's really cool. You can find it on Internet Archives.
All right.
And he... I think he took a motorbike from South Australia through to Western Australia or the East Coast, and then he jumped on this big, it was like a pearl lugger almost.
Yeah, what is that?
A big kind of commercial vessel that took him up north through the islands of Southeast Asia, and he filmed it all and made a wicked documentary, and that kind of lifestyle really resonates with us growing up on the coast. We surf, we fish hard, and we love spending time in the water, spearfishing, and that's kind of all that we get up to living on the boat. So for me, the inspiration of living on a sailboat comes from wanting to do all those activities as much as possible and love the lifestyle around the water.
Yeah, and he's got some pretty crazy footage of him, because it was just after World War II. And he was going through all these military islands that the US had abandoned. And he was funding his expedition through finding like ex-army bits and pieces, like big old diesel motors and copper and all that sort of stuff. And they'd put it on their boat. They'd make these big jetties out of bamboo, put it on their boat, and then sail to Singapore and offload it all and sell it.
Wow.
And we just wanted to do, rogue, interesting stuff like that and just explore.
So it sounds like it was more about a means to sort of travel and see the world as opposed to sort of the art of sailing a boat at sea.
Yeah, for us, a sailing boat is a vehicle to get us from A to B and find all these cool surf spots and meet interesting people and do all the fishing that we love to do. Basically, we're doing everything that we love that we would normally do back home, except we've just got our hands on this big lovely yacht and we're doing it on that now.
Yeah, the sailing as an art is definitely come second to us as what we would expect first. We thought we'd just be able to scooch around and sail about, but it's a slow and hard journey well earned. Sailing is definitely an art. We're only coming to appreciate that more and more as we move further and further down the track.
I mean, you guys have made it pretty far already, and like what? So back to my original question. Okay, you got that. That's your inspiration. How do you take the first step? What was the first step? The first like actual action that you're gonna do this? What was the first step?
For me, it was a bit of a dark start. Really, it was a weird one for me. So I was traveling around Australia we call them troopies. They're like a big four-wheel drive van. I was traveling around that for like a year with some of my mates, and they were in their four-wheel drives, and I was towing a jet ski around, surfing all these cool spots and stuff. And then it was just after my 22nd birthday. We were at this big festival, and this festival sort of went rogue. It was in this big rainforest, and it was like pouring down with rain. And there was mud everywhere. There was all these like cars slipping through all the mud and stuff. And it was quite late at night. And I've walked down this track, and I've come to this corner and hit all of these people, screaming and stuff. And there's this car upside down in this river, and I've jumped into the river and pulled this dude out of the car. And then he sort of just like died in my arms, and
Jesus.
Yeah, it was really heavy. Pretty dark story to share with you. But yeah, sort of figuring all that out for the weeks after that, and then sort of came to this realization. I was like, shit, we can't all live forever. Like, I'm going to go and do it now. And then I bought tickets to Greece and bought the boat like a month and a half later.
Really?
Yeah.
So you'd had this idea sort of marinating, and this one traumatic experience was like, okay, that's it.
Yeah. I originally wanted to sail around Australia. I remember getting my first paycheck when I was maybe like 17 or like 18 when I was living in Broome in WA. And I had like $8,000 at the end of the season when I was a ranger. And I thought I was the richest man ever. And then I was looking at all these boats, like little S&S's, and just thought I could, do it on a shoestring budget and travel around Australia. And then I sort of left it for a bit, and then came back to the idea, and it's blew up into this whole world expedition of sail and Revelry back to Australia.
Did you guys grow up together?
Nah. I'll let you tell the story of how we met.
Yeah, we only met a couple of years ago, 2019. I'd flown back to West Australia and met Henry just briefly on the beach. He was dating a friend of my sister's, and we had a beer and sunset session, half an hour chat, and went on my ways. I flew back overseas, and then start of 2020, the world was changing and it was time for me to come home. I had a place to stay in Exmouth in the northwest of WA, where I moved into Henry's house. He had a house he'd rented with some mates. One other guy that I knew, young Jack, we'd bumped into each other at the local tackle shop, is when I learned they were in town. And then my sister had helped tee up me to sleep in the front yard for a couple of weeks. She was sick of having me in the caravan, and I ended up staying and moved into a room, and we spent the next couple of years hanging out up there together, which is also where we started talking about making some massive adventure happen and trying to get out and about, explore, to surf and to fish around the world. And that idea, that conversation naturally progressed into doing it on a sailboat would be the most effective and most efficient way for us to do it. And it was only a while later that Henry really proposed the idea in a more realistic opportunity to me, where I was able to then just give it my all and go all in. I thought it was the best idea that anyone had given me so far. I was looking to do something similar, maybe around Indonesia, but not for a long time coming. And, combining our forces really kickstarted the whole project, slingshotted it straight into reality. We were out on the water within 18 months of really having that hard conversation about wanting to do this. Just needed to work a bit more and get the money together, and that was kind of where it really happened. From the dinghy races we'd have around Exmouth to sailing around now. Yeah.
Do you guys think you like did you have a pretty typical like when you guys were teenagers and stuff growing up, was your experience fairly typical of people from that part of the world?
Oh, I think so, yeah. I grew up around Fremantle. Went to a private school and then graduated at a public school. I was skateboarding around, skipping school to smoke bongs in the streets and cause trouble. But, yeah, that was all just fun, and we wisened up pretty quickly and started spending more time in the water, and surfing really kind of brought me out into nature, and that progressed into snowboarding and an obsession with boards, and then brought me back to surfing when I come back to West Australia, and time in the waters where I meet most of my friends nowadays, and that's kind of where it's been with Henry and I, just lifestyle based around the water.
What did your friends and family think when you guys were like, yep, we're doing this?
My parents super supportive. They're both artists, and they've always pursued exactly what they wanted to do with their life. So, when I came up with this big idea, they were all for it. People used to tell them, like, you never make money through art, and now they're absolutely killing it.
What do they do?
Make big public sculptures and stuff like that for
cool.
like government and mining companies and all sorts around Australia.
I wonder how much, I'm sure this has to be the case. Like, you grew up around that, and it was sort of your default to do something outside the box, right? Like, how much of that actually was your inspiration without you even realizing it?
Oh, massive chunk for sure. Me and my brother, I've got an older brother, Finn. He's sort of in the art scene as well. He's an up-and-coming musician doing really well for himself, and that's not the textbook approach to life that normal people take.
Yeah.
And neither is this as well. So yeah, it's more like through their experiences we can learn that it's possible to do something different outside the box to a lot of other people around the world.
What does your family do?
I'm pretty independent. My sister was pretty well supportive. She did want me to hang out in WA and keep working and earning and secure some land or something for us, but I figure we've got plenty of time for that, and I was ready to take the leap out into something else and spend all my money on another adventure again. So yeah, I'm pretty free range. I suppose that's why I was an easy candidate to bring on board. I hadn't had any commitments and a lot of free time to pursue something like this. So yeah, I'm pretty happy to just get around it. And yeah.
So you didn't mention your parents. If you don't want to talk about that, we don't have to, but I have to ask because it was a obvious omission.
Yeah. So I moved out of home when I was 16. So I suppose that's a little different upbringing to most. That was by choice. My dad just wanted to move to a town that I wasn't so interested in. I didn't want to leave my friends, and I had a space to live with my sister and a job to work with her. She had a little cafe at the time. So yeah, learned to be independent from a very young age, and my mother passed away when I was a boy.
Oh wow!
Another piece that's kind of slingshotted me into adult life from earlier than most people.
Yeah.
But fortunate enough to travel a lot around the world growing up still, and I think it's I've used a lot of those skills that I've learned traveling with my family at a young age, out getting around in these new countries, dealing with customs and getting through airports and ports and stuff. It's a kind of a long earned love for adventure and travel that I've had growing up.
Yeah,
that has been kind of left to my own devices. Yeah.
So all right, if we're gonna, this is really great. I love hearing the philosophical stuff behind this. But like, if we're gonna use this as a means to inspire the people like yourselves, what was the template? Like, how did you guys, why Greece? How much money did you think you needed? What was the actual plan?
So I was lucky through COVID. I bought a property when I was 21 and sold that at the height of COVID. So that funded a big chunk of the boat.
Cool. You bought a property from money saved doing charters and offshore stuff?
Yeah, exactly.
Man, that's like super, talk about like an advantage. That's super rare for a 21-year-old to be able to save enough money and then have the wherewithal to like do something smart with it.
Oh, if COVID didn't happen, I would have gone to Mexico and blown all of it. Well, that's literally what I was planning on doing. Me and my mate.
Okay.
You like this name, Baz? Good Australian name. We were going to go to Mexico.
I like, by the way,
and-
you should say your cup says, what is it, Hennas on it.
Oh, Hannah's. That's my nickname.
Yeah, I figured.
That's my work cup.
Nice.
Short and stubby, doesn't fall over on the benches. Yeah, and then sold the property and just worked super, super hard. I knew that because Australia hasn't really got many boats, like many sailboats, and if they are, they're super expensive and probably not exactly what you want. Whereas Greece has got the big charter industry. All the boats are from Europe, all those production boats. Like we've got the Beneteau 423, and that's something like a boat that I knew I could probably handle and probably afford.
How did you even know that, though? Like, if you guys didn't come from sailing, how did you even know to look to Greece, or is that just a known thing?
Sort of just doing lots of research online, really, and you know, you've got all those other guys doing it, all the other YouTube crew and stuff, and they sort of talk about that a little bit.
Okay, yeah.
And so, talked to one of my dad's best mates is a sail maker, and he sailed all around the world, and I was talking to him about boats, and he mentioned Greece would be a good option in Europe. So it was either Greece, sort of Italy, those Mediterranean countries. And then another good friend of my parents, they had a boat in Greece, and I was asking them, I was literally on the bridge of the boat at work, just calling these guys flat out, asking them so many questions. I've got a diary full of questions about boats, and they had a Cyclades 43, which is kind of similar to my boat. So they were a huge help for me as well.
That's pretty cool. And then, and how did you guys know how much money you were going to need? Like, did you buy the boat outright?
Yeah, bought the boat outright.
Cool.
So sold the property and then worked, leading up to that, I pretty much worked flat out. And then, where were we? So yeah, got the boat, came back to Oz, and then I planned to work 6 months straight offshore. So I had
6 months straight.
Yeah,
Shit. Well,
back swings.
What was that like? Was that easier knowing you were, had this to look forward to, or was it still tough?
Super motivational.
Yeah.
Yeah, knowing that we've got the boat.
Still, that's got to
secured the
be
boat.
exhausting, though.
Oh, yeah.
Back to back to back stints. I've got some friends that work offshore in Norway, and they're only out like 2 weeks at a time.
Yeah. Normally it's 4 weeks at a time.
Yeah.
But because I was with different companies, I could line them all up. I didn't end up doing the full 6 months because some swings fell through.
Yeah.
But I did work, majority of that time.
What was your job? What were you actually doing when you were working on the offshore?
Hydrographic survey, mostly. And then on barges as well, excavating land to build like a sort of pier for a
But were
port.
you like hands-on physical manual labor stuff, or were you stand and watch on the bridge? What was your role?
Watch keeping mainly.
Yeah.
Yeah, so either a watch keeper and first mate as well.
Okay, so that's cool. So you had a nice job, I guess, on the boats then.
Yeah. It's a lot of the offshore work that we do. It's pretty glamour work. Like you're getting paid excellent money. Like it's you're getting paid like $800 a day, which for young fellas like us can set your whole life up.
And you're not
quickly.
spending it because you can't, right?
Yeah, all your food's paid for, all your flights to work, everything. So that was, if we didn't work offshore, basically we couldn't do this.
Yeah. So anyway, all right. So you save up the money, you go get the boat. Was the plan always to sail it all the way back to Australia?
Yeah, for sure. Or maybe not so much Australia, but Indonesia.
Okay.
Indonesia's sort of the goal for me, at least.
So you're going to sail from Australia to Indonesia via Greece.
Yeah. Yeah, maybe Indo first even, because Indonesia's like Australia's backyard. Super, super cheap flights. Yeah. It'd be easier to live a normal life, doing a bit of work, a bit of sailing, a bit of exploring, that sort of thing.
How did you like decide what sort of skills you guys needed to learn, what equipment the boat needed to do this type of sailing? Did you even do a survey on the boat when you bought it? Did you change sails, the rig? Like, what was the... I mean, I talk a lot about the importance of the preparation, and you guys mentioned at the beginning of this that you did a lot of preparation work, but how did you know what to do, and what did you prioritize?
So I just sit at work, just looking at so many ads, and I have like a whole arsenal of people at work, like really, really good, like top tier engineers that have also sailed, and some of the other guys like the skippers and the first mates have sailed around the world. So I had all the information I needed right in front of me.
That's
and
so cool.
Everyone could tell me exactly what to do, which was awesome. And yeah, we did get a survey. I think the survey was a bit botched. I think
most surveys are shit anyway. It's just a formality. Yeah.
But it did turn out to be a great boat, and we haven't had too many dramas with it. But yeah, all our preparations also learnt through work. All the checks, like we do like full rig checks, check all our instruments, all the like bilge pumps and steering checks, all the autopilot, like really, really hands-on before trips. Mainly stemming from this drama that we had coming from Turkey to Sicily, that we were pretty gung-ho back then. We sort of underestimated the Med a lot and didn't have...
I've never sailed in the Med, so this is all new to me.
Yeah, we didn't have any weather forecasting at all. We just had our phones and could get signal when we could get signal. I'll let Bay tell that story.
Yeah, for this part, this is where we started really knuckling down on what we needed to get prepared for further ocean-going sailing. Basically, we had a 5-day forecast, 3 days expired, that we were following to sail from the south of Crete to the southern tip of Sicily, which had changed dramatically.
How long is that?
It's 400 miles from there, I think.
Yeah. Something like that, like three or 4 days.
Yeah, and during that time that we were out of reception, two lows collided basically on the top of that sea. I forget the name.
It's called an Omega block over the Ionian.
Omega block formed over the Ionian and just spat out this really strong circling wind that we just sailed straight through unknowingly. We had two other guys pretty inexperienced, and Henry was a bit under the weather.
I had gastro.
Some gastro and food poisoning.
Oh, no.
3 days.
So I was more than less sailing with a little bit of assistance, but calling all the shots for extended periods of time and getting a bit weary. And we just wanted to press on upwind sailing the whole time, and it just started blowing and squalling and pumping through, and we ended up getting into port a few days later than we expected. Super wet, everything torn up, and we were doing an inspection. Henry had planned to get the rig redone in Sicily in very good timing. We were doing an inspection just before that happened and starting to tear down the running rigging to remove the mast, and the forestay was hanging on the little U-bolt up on the top of the mast by just a hair. Was just caught by the tension of metal on metal with no pin through it, and as soon as that mast got lifted by the crane, the whole forestay just slumped right down. It was really close.
Shit.
We were just running third reef through this system, and as reefed as we could, and just kept flogging, and that was enough to nearly pop it out, but not enough to get it all the way down.
So did that happen during the trip, or would you have noticed it if you had actually looked?
I think we would have noticed a split pin might have fallen out before we'd left, which would have been a really easy fix.
So that was a good wake-up call then.
Yeah, but prior to all that, arriving on the vessel and checking it all out, I have done a little bit of sailing in the past, but only as a spectator, really. I'd been on a few boats, some twilight sailing, and I came into the project with a really open mindset, and I wanted to treat the boat like a puzzle. It's all right in front of us. We just have to learn how all these parts work and get into the nitty-gritty of how all these systems work together so that we know how to fix them. And prior to that, making sure that everything's strong, touching everything, testing everything. And I also geared up my car back home to do extended trips off the grid for a few weeks at a time, chasing surf and fish. So I wanted to take what I'd known from preparing a car to survive out off grid onto the boat. So similar kind of similar mindset in the sense,
totally.
different equipment, but just to be independent from ports, power, water were kind of main priorities at the time. And I guess that just comes with knowing what to expect on a longer adventure, which we'd done before, just not technically at sea on our own vessel. And the boats that we work with are all equipped with similar systems that you need on a sailboat to survive offshore. So we just kind of transferred what we'd seen and tried to make it our own, put our own kind of spin on what would fit in the boat, what we had space for, what we had money for especially.
It's really cool that you guys had such a, I guess it sounds like you were aware of it too, but you such a advantage over people that just go from like a 9-to-5 job, shore life, and say, okay, we're going to quit and go off sailing. I mean, you had, even though you had no sailing experience, you had a huge advantage to most people.
Yeah, I think it comes with the territory of Western Australia and traveling so much around that coast. It's so remote. You have to be prepared, and you have to have your wits about you mechanically and know how to get, your lights working in the middle of the night when your car's broken down, or stuff like that is translated directly to being able to have us get through tough spots in the boat. Yeah, bush mechanic skills have pulled us out of a couple problems for sure.
So, has the sailing gotten, like, you guys have sailed many thousand miles so far. Has it gotten
about 9,000 miles so far.
Hell yeah. Has it gotten harder, easier as you've gone?
Definitely getting easier. Yeah.
What about it?
We had a friend of ours, Louis Rado, join us for this last crossing from the Canary Islands down to Cape Verde, where we spent a few weeks, and across the Atlantic to Barbados here. Unfortunately, he's just left, but he's a seasoned dinghy racer. Okay. He'd had a few really good years working with some really experienced coaches, and he had his sailing trimming right down to a T on those boats, and was really able to show us a whole lot of new skills that we hadn't really picked up on. Kind of the nitty-gritty of technical adjustments that we've been able to learn through him to make us sail a little bit faster. We'd be able to point and shoot for the first few months of the trip. But yeah, very basic. Downwind skills were way off the ball. Upwind, we'd just rip everything as tight as we could, and it's changed a bit. We've got a pole now as well, and
where did you get the pole from?
We actually got.
I'm delighted to hear that. By the way, I am a huge proponent that cruising boats need to carry.
Oh yeah,
poles.
I'm so glad we got it. We actually met Frenchman Michel, an old Atlantic racer, was just in the pen next to us at Arrecife Marina in Lanzarote. And he just had a spare one sitting on the deck of his boat and offered it to us, which was quite amazing. He also gave us a little portable desal if we were to ever spend a night in the lifeboat. We'd be able to hand pump some fresh water. So he was looking out for us.
Wow, that's cool. That's so cool.
Yeah, so it has experiences coming along slowly but surely. It's definitely an unexpected challenge that we've come across. Learning how to sail fast has been harder than we thought, I think, and there's still a lot to learn. But that's almost kind of one of the most intriguing things about the sailing that I'm finding I like, is that it's a really open book. The challenges of pushing the boat a little bit faster or making it more comfortable are really endless. I think there's so many ways to go about it. It's really nice art to work on.
Did you guys fly the kite across the Atlantic?
Yeah, so we flew it for 11 days straight.
Wow. And day and night.
Yeah.
Hell yeah.
Because it was super light winds for us.
Yeah.
And the only time it came down was when we were either jibing or when it fell in the piss. So our halyard snapped twice because there's a block up there that was a bit worn. And then after the second time, I was like, right, we've already run it twice, so we'll swap it to the topping lift. But then the little plate where the halyard exits the mast, that tore out, and then that was on bare aluminium.
I know exactly what you're talking about, because Beneteau's, I have a friend that has a Beneteau Oceanus 40, I think, and you don't really have proper spinnaker gear at the top of that mast.
Nah,
The halyards come out of the mast through a slot, and unless they're led perfectly, they're going to rub on something. As
Yeah.
opposed to, like, if you guys look at the top of Falcon, you've got an overhanging crane that a block hangs from, and it's like, that's how it's supposed to be done. But that's just what you get on a charter boat Beneteau. And I'm sure you guys didn't even know that when you looked at the boat, right? That's like one of those things.
No idea.
At least my friends, Ryan and Sophie, who they might be listening to this anyway, same thing. Like, they got into it. They didn't know what they didn't know. And then when they started flying spinnakers, they're like, oh, shit, we don't have the right gear for this. That's what happened. That's what happened, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
It's the whole setup up there is shit.
Yeah.
It's not great. But yeah, that is, I suppose, the difference between, a charter boat and a boat that's set up for world cruising. And that's something we want to change for sure.
Yep.
And something that we need to change because we can't keep getting the spinnaker wet.
Yeah, well, this is a good segue. When you met you the other day, you had some pretty gnarly staples in your knee. And that was a consequence of having to fix the spinnaker. So why don't you tell that story?
Yeah, for sure. So every time the spinnaker wanted to take a tumble into the water, it was, of course, like 2 a.m. in the morning when, there's just one person on watch. We only had 3 guys going across. So one person on watch, and then, you'd hear a yell and wake up during the night, and it'd be everyone on deck. Usually it'd be someone straight out of bed in the nude. And we'd be, we'd steer the boat. So we'd blow off from the spinnaker and then recover the spinnaker. And we ended up getting it back on deck, all good. And we'd have it flying the next day. We'd have to rerun the halyard. And that's, where I ended up hurting my knee. So we're up right at the top. It wasn't the best day to be doing it, but...
Why? Was it rolly,
just the sea state was pretty rolly. And so I was right up the top of the mast. I had like another strap holding myself to the mast so I couldn't, fly off.
Like a wrecking ball.
Yeah. And then we ran the halyard, and then I noticed the Genoa halyard, another shitty charter setup. It ran through this stainless eye, and that had rubbed down to the core, so we had to refresh that. And we sort of had to have a little bit of sail out to keep us stable. So we still had the Genoa out while we were refreshing it. So we lashed the Genoa up at the top and then pulled out 0.5 meter, cut off the worn bit. And when I was cutting off the worn bit, I had this real great knife that my parents got me before I left, and just cut through it like butter. And I followed through and nicked my knee, and it's left this maybe like 3-4 centimeter long cut on my knee, which was quite deep, like way through all the muscles, and just started absolutely leaking blood everywhere. So my Genoa's just got blood spots all over it now. It looks horrible. So I know I should probably ask you how to do that, if we should be bleaching it or not.
I don't know how to clean blood off sails. Beats me.
The top of the mast, it looks like it's painted red. So
man,
I've got I haven't been up there since. I'm a bit scared of going up the mast now.
Oh, you're gun shy now, hey?
I'm sure I'll still manage it.
It's
but,
well, I was impressed that you guys had because your knee looks. I mean, it's how long ago did that happen?
9 days ago now.
Okay, because it looks really nice, and the fact that you had, I was pleasantly surprised to hear. Most people, they leave the medical stuff till the last minute. And, you clearly have proper medical staples in there, and it looks like you did a really nice job taking care of it. So I'm like, where did that?
Thank you very much.
You did that, Bayley? Is that your work?
I was the one punching the staples into him. Yeah.
So what was that like?
I was a bit more on edge than Henry was by the time he got down.
This is daylight though, right?
Yeah, daylight. Okay. So we'd wait till the morning to run the halyards again and just deal with what we could with the wet spinnaker on the deck through the rest of the night. But way back in Sicily, we met a lovely lady, Erica Surfdock, who admired our style and called us over to her table at dinner, where we became friends with her and a group of ladies. And she had heard the story of what we wanted to do.
Admired our style story. I love that.
Yeah,
That's
she
great.
was, oh, you guys must be surfers. She was yelling at us from the street, like, oh, yeah, g'day. And lovely lady, was a emergency response doctor, at a hospital in Sicily there. And she had asked us about our medical equipment and skills and stores, what we had. And we didn't have much to tell her. We had a pretty shitty expired medical box from Greece from the charter company. And
Band-Aids.
I carry some Band-Aids, enough to deal with a little reef cut, some Fix-A-Mole. And she lectured us for a couple hours and brought down pretty much a garbage bag full of stuff she'd pinched from the hospital that she'd found for us and given to us, and gave us a big rundown on what to use in what situation: stitches, staples, antibiotics. We've got cortisone injections, morphine, painkillers, local anaesthetic, and from the information that she was able to share with us, gave us the ability to punch these staples in and send him on his way. I suppose we probably wasn't the most sterile job, and took about 8 staples that we ripped out before we decided we liked the 4 that looked good in him. Yeah.
So what did it? Were you like stressed out?
I was a bit. Yeah. Henry was pretty level-headed about it.
You told me you did tried the first one without anesthetic. How did that go?
Yeah. So the first one in.
By the way, first of all, back up. What were you thinking at the top of the mast when you did this? What were you thinking?
I just yelled out to Bay. I was like, "Well, get the medical kit."
I thought he was joking. I didn't know what he was talking about up there. He kind of had a bit of a whimper in his voice. And he wasn't telling me he wanted to come down. He still finished the job, retied the halyards, and then we lowered him down, and that's when I saw the blood all over the deck and kind of started asking questions. Yeah.
So, yeah, I've got down the mast rather quickly, and I'm on the deck. The boys are like, "Oh, holy shit, this is a bit more serious than we thought it would be." There's blood everywhere. And so I've hobbled over to the stern of the boat onto the swim deck, where I don't mind getting blood. It's where all the fish blood goes. And Bay's ripped out the medical kit and sorted everything out, and I was a bit, I don't know, gung-ho about it, and thought that we could do it without local, which was, a silly move, because it feels like a big stainless steel bull ant biting you. You know, it really, really hurt. It was a pretty funny video of me taking the first one. And then, thought we should probably get the local, and I injected all that myself, and from there on it was actually pretty comfortable, pretty easy to do.
Yeah, I put a GoPro on my head and POV'd the whole repair situation.
Oh, wow.
So at some point that'll be up on our Instagram or YouTube in good time. Might be able to have a look.
If you guys put that on YouTube, you got to give me the link, because I'll stick that on our quarterdeck thing, because that's a great example of like, all right, here's what you got to be ready to deal with.
Yeah, definitely a nice introduction into the possibilities of medical emergencies offshore. I think we had to deal with an easy one. Given the equipment and circumstances.
Having a contact as well.
Yeah, having a contact. We were speaking with Erica as it happened.
Oh, wow. So you kept in touch with her, and she became your sort of shore doctor.
Yeah, exactly. So we were asking her where to go from having the staples in and having a plaster on, and she recommended we, in a few days, give Henry some antibiotics just in case it does get some strange colour, and he's been on those, and it's turned out sweet. Just keeping it dry, keeping it clean.
So I can't decide if you guys are dumbasses for not figuring that out before, or if you're like smart enough to be aware that like this has fallen in your lap and okay, let's take this opportunity, or both, I guess.
Yeah, we're learning as we go for sure.
That's cool. Sorry, so you told me another story too the other day, which is the other side of this, where you guys were wakeboarding or surfing while the spinnaker was up. Which I got to preface this because when you told me this story, I was jealous because I was sitting on the swim platform one day. We're sailing downwind, going like 10, 11 knots, and I was like, man, I could wakeboard behind the boat right now. And then I'm thinking like, God, that'd be so cool. But boy, if you fall, high stakes. And you guys actually did it.
Yeah, this is one of friend Louis' mastermind plans. He's come up with some really fun sunny day downwind sailing setups. We've had few hammocks off the pole and sitting around. We've had the bosun's chair sitting out off the Genoa, sitting under that, just dangling, drinking beers over the water. We might have achieved a world first. Also, Henry was sitting under the Genoa in the bosun's chair, hovering over the water, drinking a beer, holding a whole pig's leg that we picked up from the Canary Islands, just chewing on that. That clip will probably come to daylight soon as well.
Nice.
Yeah, Louis came up with the idea of tying the ski rope that we used to scurf behind the dinghy to the clew of the spinnaker and jump in with a board and see if we could gather enough power
Was
to
it a surfboard?
do some turns. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, one of our surfboards. And it worked pretty well. We had the rope pretty short, tied it off, and we were just letting the sheet out to kind of power up as we'd kind of turn upwind a little bit, and the spinnaker would kind of not flap, but power away, and then you'd be able to turn and pull it back in and kind of surf and turn along with it. Yeah, it was pretty fun.
Did
But
anybody fall?
Henry fell. He was as any good captain, the first man to test the waters. Yeah. And he fell and was getting dragged. The surfboard was tombstoning behind him as
What
we
does
were
that mean?
moving along a few knots. It's when the boards, you can only see the nose of the board, the rest of it's in the water, and it bobs around
Tombstoning.
like a tombstone.
Were you
stick out
attached
of the
to
ground.
it, or was it just sitting?
Yeah, so he had a leg rope on, but I watched his boardies slip off as he was getting dragged along, holding on
So
to
you're
the
holding
handle
on to the ski
still.
rope.
Yeah.
Stretched out.
And his boardies got caught around the leg rope and just held the board under as it was dragging along the tail. And then he'd let go and kind of doggy paddled over to the line that we'd had behind the back of the boat, which was our safety line. Not much safety other than if you can grab onto it. Yeah, we ended up having to slow the boat down, sock the spinnaker, and pull him back in manually.
But you managed to grab onto the rope?
Yeah.
Pretty good.
Yeah, it was a pretty good trick. Definitely something I'd like to try again. Maybe with a dinghy in the water and a little bit more
Well, that's
wind.
what I thought. I was like, all right, if we had a dinghy in the water, I would definitely do this, because we had the spinnaker up, and I mean, if you'd have to turn the boat around, that would be a hell of a process.
Yeah, well, it was smack bang in the middle of the Atlantic in 4,000 meters of water, so probably wouldn't recommend to do it.
That's so
in
cool,
those
though. You know, like
circumstances.
my thought though, it's like you got like it's just refreshing. I spend so much time talking about technical shit on this show and like about how to do things the right way and safety and all the rest, and it's like it's also okay to have fun sometimes.
Yeah, for sure. Like, you know, we know safety, we know boat safety and
Yeah.
stuff, but we are, 24 and we do like having fun. But most of the stuff we do is sort of calculated, I
I
guess.
was going to use that same word, calculated. I would have
Yeah.
been there with you 100%. I think that's one of those calculated things. I mean, I'm probably going to get shit because a lot of our pictures, nobody's wearing life jackets, but it's like perfectly flat calm. It's nice, and we had a
Yeah.
no life jacket rule in the daytime if it was nice, and I think that's okay. It's calculated.
100% for
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah, we also exercise that rule. Sun's out and the water's flat. We're running around free range.
Yeah.
Usually we call them dicky bathers or budgie smugglers.
One of our crew.
I don't wear those.
Good. I would. You won't see me in those either. One of our crew though had a hat. It was like a bright fluorescent hat, baseball hat with like a big neck thing. It looked ridiculous, but it said "Budgie Smuggler" on the hat.
Yeah, that'd be it.
Yeah, that's pretty funny. Well, so you guys are you halfway home yet? Not quite.
To be honest, I don't even know. I haven't really measured the distance.
Have you run out of money yet?
We are very close. So in the next month, the boat will be laid up in Grenada. I've got a few mates jumping on tomorrow because Bayley leaves today, and we'll be sailing south through the Grenadines to Grenada and then back home for a few months to go back offshore and make some money and get back into it, hopefully towards the end of the year and across the Pacific.
How does it feel knowing that you're sort of closing this chapter?
Oh, it's been a pretty awesome couple of days, last days for me here. Fortunately, we've been introduced to some awesome people that have shown us some great adventures. But aside from all that action in the water, it's been pretty melancholy, pretty slow wind down, lots of jobs to get done on the boat to, get it in a state for me to step off, lots of cleaning, lots of organising, going through everything. It's pretty sad, surely, but it's been a wicked adventure, and 9 months living on the boat. It's been a well spent amount of time. I'm looking forward to a bit of time off and back on land and to regroup and earn some more money shortly and hopefully join Henry back again for another adventure and some more waves soon. But yeah, in good time.
Yeah, and for me, it's strange feelings because I'm losing my main man. So yeah, I don't know. It's just going to be different sort of from here on out, but we'll still be having fun. It's only a month to go before I'm back home. So,
if you had it your way, would you stay on the boat continuously, or are you looking forward to having a break?
Yeah, I'd probably stay on a bit longer, but we've all gone and got girlfriends, so that's changed things a fair bit. So we've got to go see them, but it will be a good time to spend time with all my family and friends that I haven't seen.
I like
the
the contrast.
year.
I like the coming and going. It is a bit of the transition period is sort of shocking, like from one to the next. But you get home and then it's like you never left. You come back to the boat and it's like you never left.
Yeah,
and you have two separate lives. I mean, I'm traveling. I'm doing it in shorter chunks than you guys are, but I personally like the contrast. It keeps both sides of it fresh.
Yeah, I think maybe next year we might not do such a big stint on the boat. We might break it up into smaller blocks, and so we do get that contrast because 9 months is a long time between all those walls and just in that little hole there.
So what would you say? I'm going to wrap this up now. Again, if we're trying to inspire other people like yourselves, what two things I want to ask each of you to end with is sort of what would you tell your sort of 19-year-old self now, knowing what you know now, and what's probably the biggest? So what would you tell your 19-year-old self, and what is the biggest gap of what you expected, what you thought it was going to be versus reality? Where was the biggest gap?
I'd say to my 19-year-old self, probably don't do what everyone else is doing. Like everyone's been doing that for God knows how long. Let's break away a little bit and do something interesting. Build a cool team of your mates. Work towards a specific goal, and just have fun with it. And money comes, money goes. It's not about buying houses and all that sort of thing. Just we've only got X amount of time on this earth, so just have as much fun and build the most extraordinary life you can with it. That's what I'd say.
Yeah, for myself, I'd never felt more motivated than having the prospect of this adventure coming up. Once we'd started talking about it seriously to when we actually got out here, it was about 18 months. And through that 18 months, I've been the most determined and willing I've ever been in my life. Having that goal ready to attack, we just needed to earn more money and then go for it. And to not be too cautious of stepping out and taking on an adventure that you're not so sure about. I think that's where true sense of adventure comes from is the unknown, and there was a lot of unknown about this trip or whether it was possible, and stepping into it with the best foot forward and just going for something. And as a team too, I don't think we would have been able to achieve this individually, been able to link up together and really put our minds and financials into one bag. Not that I've committed too much, but I've definitely helped where I could along the way. And just having that team motivated adventure mindset to ready to step away from what you know and get into something new is something that could, change your life. You might learn something. You definitely learn something, whether you continue it or not, whatever. It's just having had that experience will probably make you a more rounded person coming down the track.
The dangerous part is now you've done it. Now you know what's possible.
Yeah.
Now there's going to be more and more and bigger.
What's next, right?
That's the challenge. Is where does it stop? It doesn't.
Yeah.
I can tell you from experience.
Yeah.
I'm 40 now, and I've been doing this as long as you guys have. And
really enjoying this natural progression of travel around the world, and looking forward to more sailing adventures. All we've been thinking about and talking about the last few months is different boats and what we could do with this boat or that boat. Yeah, I think we're pretty stung. Yeah.
We're going to be in a financial hole for the rest of our lives.
For the rest of your lives. Yep.
Yeah,
welcome to the club.
I'm the lucky one. The best boat's a friend's boat. That's the situation I'm in. Just got to get invited back, eh?
Cool. Well, all right. And last question. What was the biggest gap between
the biggest gap, right?
Expectations and reality?
I think the pace of movement for me, it really has been a slow jog across this part of the world, moving at average of 5 or 6 knots. And with that comes days and days of dealing with the logistics and also paperwork of checking in and out countries has been a welcome challenge. It's fun. I think it's extraordinary getting in and out of customs, but that's been way slower and way more difficult, and getting around's been a lot slower than I expected. But it's a nice pace. It's a nice change of pace to get back to, not worrying so much every day about literal progress, but enjoying the little steps along the way and getting along slowly and enjoying everywhere you are as much as you can. Yeah.
Very well said. I love that.
Yeah, and I think all my expectations have been met this trip for sure. There is probably the mental challenge is the hardest thing that I wasn't really expecting, like, crossing oceans and dealing with customs and all the financial parts that comes into it. That can be a bit of a headache, but I've been based around good people, so you push through that, and happy days. It's been
emotional roller coaster as it is.
Yeah, you feel every emotion out there for sure, and if you've got a team, so you're always working with your team. That can be difficult sometimes, like you have arguments, that sort of thing. You might give each other the finger sometimes and have a little blow up, but it all settles down, and we're all still mates and happy to be doing it. So I think everything's worked out really well for us, and super grateful and happy.
This is great, guys. Thank you so much for sharing your story. I'll excitedly follow you the rest of the way. So
sounds great.
It's been fun, man. Thanks.
Yeah, thanks, Andy.
Yeah, thanks very much for the opportunity, Andy. We'll see you around the traps.
Hell yeah. Thanks, guys. See you around the traps. What the hell does that mean?
Love it. I was just saying. See you around.
Thanks again to the Harbor Burn Cannon Company for sponsoring this episode of the podcast. If you've got a boat, you need a cannon. If you need a cannon, go to harborburn.com to pick out yours now. Thanks also to Forbes Yachts for sponsoring this show. Go to Forbes Yachts, that's Forbes, ForbesYachts.com to get in touch to buy or sell your dream boat. And tell Forbes that Andy from 59 North said hello. On the Wind is the podcast about sailing, created by 59 Degrees North and hosted by me, Andy Schell, and also by August Sandberg, Emma Garshagen, and occasionally Ben Doer. The show is mixed and produced in Frederick, Maryland by Lee Cumberland. Ads are read by us, the hosts, and occasionally by 59 North's bosun Adam Brown and podcast producer Lee Cumberland. Episode artwork and website show notes are done by Laura Parent in San Francisco. The intro theme music is composed and performed by former podcast guest and musician Cameron Dale, while the outro music you're hearing now is, of course, by our friends, the Stormweather Shanty Choir. We love hearing from our fans, so send your questions and comments to holdfast@59-north.com, and please do us a favor and review the show on iTunes or wherever else you get your podcasts. Until next time, hold fast.
I made up me mind that I was inclined to go to sea no more. No more, no more, to go to sea no more. I made up me mind that I was inclined to go to sea no more. As I was walking down the street, I met sweet Angeline. She said, come home with me, me lad, and we'll have a cracking time. But when I awoke, it was no joke. I found I was all alone. My silver watch and my money too, and my whole bloody gear was gone. Was gone. 'Cause when I awoke it was no joke, for my whole bloody gear was gone. As I was walking down the street, I met Big Rapper Brown. I asked him if he would take me in, and he looked at me with a frown. He said,
last time you was paid up with me, you talked up no score. But I'll take your advance and I'll give you a chance to go to sea once more.
once more, to go to sea once more. I'll take your advance and I'll give you a chance to go to sea once more. Sometimes we're catching whales, me lads, but mostly we get none. With a 20-foot oar in every paw from 5 o'clock in the morn. And when daylight's gone and the night's coming on, we rest upon our oars. And oh boys, you wish that you was dead or snug with the girls ashore. Ashore, ashore, or snug with the girls ashore. Oh boys, you wish that you was dead or snug with the girls ashore. Come all you seafaring lads that listen to me song. When you go a big boating, boys, make sure you do not go wrong. You take my tip when you come off a trip, don't go with any whores. But get married instead and have all night in bed and go to sea no more. No more, no more, to go to sea no more. Get married instead and have all night in bed and go to sea no more. No more, no more, to go to sea no more. Get married instead and have all night in bed and go to sea no more.